Plumber versus handyman. Which one would you rather have? Okay, now seriously, plumber versus handyman. Think about that. Some people just want whoever's cheapest to do the job. Let's talk about a handyman first. What is a handyman and why should you hire one? A handyman here in Texas does not have to have a license, meaning there are no requirements, there are no testing, there are no standards and skill sets that they have to acquire before they can become a handyman. Literally, I can start advertising tomorrow to become a handyman. That means I can work on basically whatever they think they can work on. And I say that because I know that there are a lot of handymen that work on things that they probably shouldn't. But why should you hire one? Well, think about it this way. Say you've got a doorknob that won't work. Say you've got a drawer that's stuck. Say your screen doesn't fit right. There are things that I think a handyman can do very, very well, and I think you'd be smart to call for certain situations. Now, that may vary depending upon what state you're in, but here in Texas, handymen aren't licensed and don't even have to have insurance. There are no requirements. And I want you to remember that, because when we start talking about plumbers, there's a little bit of a different standard there. Now, literally, there is no training school for handymen. There is no union. There is nothing other than they woke up one day and said, hey man, I can fix stuff. I'm gonna go be a handyman. Now, nothing wrong with that. Like I said, look, I've got a handyman I use on a regular basis. I've got a handyman that I refer to do things all the time, but he knows where his lane is and he stays in his lane, and that's his choice. It's not mine. I don't tell him you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do that. He looks at me and says, no, a license is required for it. I don't do it. My handyman is also insured. So getting the right person, getting the right handyman can be great for you. Now, let's talk about a licensed plumber. What licenses does a plumber even have to have? Well, here in Texas, you start out registering as an apprentice. Then 2 years later, if you can pass a test and pay the fees and you've done the things you're supposed to do, you can actually become a licensed tradesman. In Texas, a tradesman is licensed to work on a 1 or 2 family dwelling. No multifamily, no commercial, nothing like that. A 1 or 2 family dwelling. So a house or a duplex. Residential. That's what it's all about. After that, you can become a journeyman. A journeyman in Texas has 8,000 hours and also some prerequisites, classes you got to take, things like that. Then there's the master's exam that if you're a journeyman and you went through a DOL training program, it takes 1 more year to get your master's. If you're a journeyman and you did not go through a Department of Labor training program, it takes 4 more years. Those are the licenses in Texas. And just because you're a master doesn't mean you can open your own company. You still have to be an RMP. You have to do a little bit more training, pay a little bit more money, and then you can. Why is that important? Why would you want to hire a plumber? Well, a licensed plumber actually has an education. He has training. He knows the codes. Some plumbers go through the apprentice training program. Some go through PHCC's training program. There's a lot of training out there for plumbers, for plumbing company owners that want to hire people and train them. There's great opportunity out there. Most plumbers are trained or they've worked under a journeyman or a master for the time required for them to go take the test. If they've learned things well, they can go take the test, get the license, and go to work for them. So the training is a big deal. Whether it's in a book, whether it's on the job, there's a lot of training involved to know how to do things the right way. My guys go to a school where they learn how to solder. They come here, we teach them how to solder. They work with me out in the field, we teach them how to solder. Who teaches a handyman how to solder? Another handyman? They have not been trained and taught the right way, how to use the chemicals, how to ream the pipes, how to clean things, how to clean fittings, what size it should be. You would not believe some of the stuff that we've gone in to fix that the homeowner actually tells me, yeah, my handyman fixed that about a year ago. It's like, yeah, I can tell. Now, our plumbers are licensed, drug tested, background checked, and insured. Now, remember I said earlier, there's not requirements for a handyman? That means they don't have to have insurance. That's up to them. The state of Texas makes sure me, Roger Wakefield, as a company owner, has to be insured to a certain level. Now, me, I looked at that level and thought, man, if I ever get jacked over, this ain't enough money. So I insured myself to a higher level because I want to make sure that I'm covered, that if something does happen. Now think about that. I'm a master plumber. I hire licensed plumbers. We do things right, but I'm still wanting to make sure in case something happens. And my guys are trained right. What about your handyman? Is he trained, and what happens if he doesn't do something right? Are you covered, or is he covered, or is he going to answer the phone when you go to call him when you realize he's not? Here in Texas, what trades are licensed? You've got the plumbers, you have electricians, and you have HVAC techs that are all three licensed. Now the plumbers right now are licensed through the Texas State Board of Plumbing Examiners. And I love that. I've actually got an apprentice down there today. Good luck, Aaron. Taking the test to become a tradesman. And we talked about it the other day, and he says, Roger, it's like a rite of passage to get to go down there and take this exam. I completely agree. Electricians and HVAC techs are actually registered, certified, or licensed through TDLR, the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulations. TDLR is great. TDLR oversees like 580,000 different million people in the state of Texas and their licenses. The Texas State Board oversees plumbers. Now, I'm not saying it's good or bad one way or the other. I know the executive directors at both, and I think Lisa and Brian are both doing an amazing job. But nobody is overseeing the handyman. Why not? Shouldn't there be standards to make sure that they do things right? I've had arguments with handymen about what product to use or what fitting to use, like they know what to do with 0 years plumbing experience. And they can say, oh, well, I've installed a sink here and I've done this. Okay, here's the deal. I've got 40 years of history and training, education in plumbing. Whether it's TDLR, whether it's the Texas State Board, the state of Texas makes sure that if you're licensed in Texas, you are doing things right through training, through testing, and through continuing education. And I think that's a great thing. I think that is part of what makes being a tradesman in Texas a perfect career choice and a great thing to do. Now, I wish Texas would step up and say, if you're a handyman, you need to get a license too. That helps protect the citizens of Texas. So what happens if you hire a handyman anyway? And remember, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I think hiring a handyman for the right job is a great thing to do. But what happens if while he's there, he says, hey, you know what, I can fix that too? Well, if it's plumbing, if it's electrical, or if it's HVAC, and you have a problem, say he installs a water heater and he uses garden hoses to hook it up. Now, hopefully he won't do it that bad, but it's a possibility. You'd be surprised. I've seen stuff like that. So my thing is, if he hooks it up wrong and it floods your house and your insurance company finds out you had an unlicensed person do it so you could save a few dollars, chances are you may not be covered and any damage repairs may be up to you. Do you really want to do that? Think about it. You can hire the right person and not have to worry about it, or hire a handyman, and depending on how good the job is, you may be worried about it for a long time. So how can you check and find out if somebody has a license? Well, like I mentioned a while ago, the Texas State Board of Plumbing Examiners has an online website. You can go there and search a plumber by his name, normally by his company name, by his license type. There's a lot of different things that you can do. TDLR, same way. You can go to TDLR and check to see if an electrician is licensed or an HVAC tech. If you've hired a handyman and you had problems, or even if you didn't, if you hired a handyman to do one of these jobs, do me a favor, leave a comment down below and let me know, how did it work out for you? I'm not saying handymen aren't good. I'm saying I think they're good if they stay in their lane and do what they're supposed to do. Because to me, if they sell you something they shouldn't do and they do it wrong and it comes back costing you more money, that's not a good fit for anybody. So anyway, if you've hired one, do me a favor, leave me a comment down below and let me know. Did it work out good for you, or do you wish you'd have hired a licensed professional? I'm Roger Wakefield, Lead AP, the expert plumber. I'll see you in the next video if you don't get flushed.